To be civilized means precisely not to be fully one's culture. It means, you know, this minimum liberal freedom. I can step in, out. Culture is no longer a substantial determination of our life. It is one of the ways of life which you can enter, exit, and so on. So, of course, then it's easy for Wendy to show how, although liberalism presents itself as above particular cultures, it effectively privileges a certain culture, our culture. For example, this notion of choice, way of life, and so on, privileges individual competitiveness against social solidarity, and so on, which are features of a certain culture. But there is something else that, to conclude, if you give me literally just a couple of minutes, there is something else which is more crucial here, I think. I think her crucial limitation, the way I see it, is that her procedure of critique of ideology remains that of a hermeneutics of suspicion towards the universal. That is to say, her basic formula is what is sold to us, what the ruling ideology is telling us, and appears as universal human right, and so on. You know, this standard logic. Universality is false universality. What is really beneath it are particular interests. Like, you know, human rights only appear to be universal human rights. In reality, they are, you know the story, the rights of male, white, Western, individualist, capitalist individuals. So it's this simple, traditional Marxist demystification of false universality. I have, and I think it's crucial to insist today on this, I have two problems here, if you just allow to conclude me. The first problem, even if it is a false mask, if there is a thing to be learned from theory of ideology, is that don't mess with appearances. Appearances have an actuality, efficiency of their own. Let's take precisely human rights. Yes, it's absolutely true. They are a mystification, just of blah, blah. But nonetheless, their formal autonomy, even if it's an appearance, generates results of their own. Like, of course, they were at the beginning only human rights of white men, but as you know how the story then goes, Mary Wollstonecraft, then women said, why not also us? Then, I think, the most noble moment of French Revolution, the Haiti Revolution, when blacks asserted, why not us? And I think it was the heroic moment of Robespierre, people of Jacobins, that they fully accepted this. I think it's truly one of the sublime moments of French Revolution, when the Haiti delegation came and Robespierre received them and said, look at them. There is absolutely no difference between them and us. We are both fully citizens of the French Republic and all that stuff, and so on and so on. This was something. So again, what Wendy Brown underestimates a little bit is how even illusion can produce very real emancipatory effects. In other words, it's easy to play the game of demystification or corruption. Something that was originally authentic gets commercialized, exploited, and so on and so on. Like you can say, I don't know, maybe, not quite, in the case of jazz. Gospels, originally black protest, or then commercial recording, blah, blah. But I think what is much more interesting for a dialectical analysis is the opposite procedure. It is when something that began as a fake or brutally imposed imperialist, blah, blah, colonialist ideology is taken over, recontextualized, reappropriated. Like Christianity, Mexico, you know the story, the Black Virgin of Guadalupe. Isn't this precisely the moment when Christianity was no longer simply the ideology of colonizers, but was partially at least appropriated by the colonized to articulate their grievances? The second point is even more crucial here. And this is, I think, where the true disagreement between me and Wendy Brown lies. I claim that this is only one aspect, this hermeneutics of suspicion, where you denounce universality, you discover particular interests. But the basic lesson of Hegel, of Marx, of all those guys whom I'm an outdated dinosaur still like, is that there is an even more crucial, perhaps, opposite operation. Not you perceive yourself ideologically as advocating universal rights, but you mystify the situation, you really privilege your position, but you perceive yourself as only pursuing, following your particular view, goals, notions, but what you are unaware is precisely the universal dimension of what you are doing. You get the point? It's the exact opposite. It's the universality of your acts which is hidden, which escapes you. And I think in this sense, when we analyze capitalism, it's absolutely wrong to focus only on this so-called Eurocentric aspect and claim, oh, it appears universal, it's really Eurocentric, and so on and so on. No, I think that capitalism is effectively universal, not only in the vulgar sense that we have capitalism can be combined with Buddhism, with Hinduism, with Catholicism, Protestantism, whatever, but something much more radical. Actual universality is not part of this stupid game. How do I know when I say something universal that it's really universal and so on? It's a much more mysterious, concrete event. It's that what Hegel calls actual universality, universality for itself, which means that you relate to yourself as universal. For example, to give you the most obvious example, of course, people always, in the division of labor, almost always, did different things. In medieval society, they were not all serfs. You know, there were serfs, farmers, there were knights, there were priests, there were guild members, artisans, and so on. But nonetheless, we know the story, Max Weber and so on, it is stupid and wrong to say that if you ask a knight, what's your profession? Even for him to say, my profession is to be a knight. It's stupid. The notion of profession presupposes this modern space of contingency where what you are in your particular identity is something ultimately contingent up to a point depending on your choice, which means that you yourself do not identify yourself with your particular role and so on. You yourself perceive yourself as if the core of your being is universal and the particular way of life, form of your existence is ultimately contingent. And I think that this element is crucial. And I think this element is not only the element of universality present in capitalism, but it's even a very positive element, I claim, that true multiculturalism, authentic, or however we call it, begins with you being able to perceive, not only to respect others, that for me always a fake. The catch is, are you able to fully experience, endorse, assume the contingency of your own cultural legacy? That you do, as Descartes put it in a wonderful way in his, I think, Meditations or where, on the first philosophy, that first he thought, oh, how stupid are other civilizations, Persians, Arabs, Jews, and so on. But then he asked himself a question, my God, but if I look at myself through others' eyes, do not I also appear to myself, maybe my way of life must also appear to others as a stupid, ridiculous, and so on. And you see the catch here. The catch is not, oh, but was he really able to perceive himself through the other eyes? The catch is just that he experienced his own particular determination as something ultimately contingent. In this sense, universality is, as Hegel would have put it, a work of negativity. The universality of capitalism is what? It's not that we will all eat hamburgers. Here I respectfully agree, for example, with Homi Bhabha, who claims capitalism in culture universalizes, erases differences. No, I claim. Capitalism emphasizes difference. World capitalism does not mean we will all eat hamburgers. It means to each of us, his, her, their own way of life, but way of life precisely experienced as not our total determination, but as our particular way of life. That's capitalist universality at work. In the sense that, for example, if you are a Hindu or a Jew or what, being a Jew is no longer the fundamental determination of your being. It's something you do in the afternoon, but in the morning you work on the market or whatever. Like it's this transubstantiation of what in traditional society is your substantial determination into